cloud and admit everyone and minimize that. And will you be able to let participants in?
Unmute my thing.
Yes, I can do that.
But yeah, it's live. This lady is for me.
Good morning. I am so glad that you're all here. As you come in, would you please make sure that
Yeah, I
you
gotta up
all
my
mute yourself?
volume.
Okay, thank you. Great. Okay. Well, it is 10:30 and we are ready to begin. I am so glad you're here. I'm hoping that this is the first session to go live today. So we're hoping that we have no technology issues and that this all works well. Welcome to
And I'm muting. Oh, there we go.
There
okay.
we go.
Okay, at least we're in. Okay.
Okay, well, welcome to Computer Science Integration across the K-5 curriculum. My name is Karen Leonard, and I am the Director of Education Technology and Computer Science. If you notice at the bottom of the screen, there is a bit.ly shortcut that will allow you to access this presentation either live or at a later time today. And I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. Like I said, my name is Karen Leonard. I'm the Director of Education Technology and Computer Science here at the Oklahoma State Department of Education. And I am, there we go. Okay. My email address is right there for you to send me any messages. Not during the thing.
Karen,
yes.
Are we supposed to be seeing the slides? Because we're just seeing a distant view of you and your computer.
Oh, well, let me fix that. I am so glad. Just 1 second again. Okay. Let's see if I can go back and share my screen now in my Zoom window. And, well, I, again, appreciate all of your patience as we are starting. And let's see if I can enlarge this. Cancel. Here are my participant list, and I am almost there. Yes, I'm sure. And my goodness. There we go. Okay. Welcome once again. I am so glad you're here, and we are going to, as soon as I can get my toolbar to come up with everything. Yay! Okay. You know, one of the things about technology is the fact that we have to learn to roll with the punches. And, you know, sometimes it takes a little finagling, and hopefully now we're set. Okay, once again, welcome to Engage OK in the Cloud. My name is Karen Leonard. This is the Computer Science Integrating Across the K-5 curriculum. My email address is right there if you have any questions, as is my phone number. You can follow me on Twitter. And if you're learning or interested in learning more about computer science, please go ahead and join our OK Comp Sci Facebook group. It's a great way to get caught up on everything that's going on in computer science across the state. Now, I'm sure you're like me. We've had many opportunities to work virtually. And so I wanted to just set a couple norms before we move on. During our large group settings, such as this, please remain muted. That will just allow for less distractions for your co-participants. But in times that we go into breakout rooms, during that, please stay unmuted, and that will allow for a little bit more natural discussion time. If you are able to show your video when you're in those breakout rooms, please do that. Once again, it just provides more opportunities for natural discussion. And please, please be present and participate. I know that we're not standing here together, and it's not like you can just raise your hand. You can raise your hand virtually, but please go ahead and pop some of your questions into the chat box. And my moderator, Shana Klassen, who is the Director of PE and Health here at the Department of Education, will be able to answer some of your questions for you. Okay, moving on. Another thing, because I'm trying to make this as personalized as possible, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and change your Zoom name right now. So if you look across the bottom of your bar, you will see hopefully this participant icon right here. And if you click on that, you'll be able to find your name. Or you can look in the participant bar, then see here, there's a little more. If you click on that arrow and go to rename, I would like you to rename yourself using one of the following symbols to represent the role that you serve at your school. So here's an example. I could change my name to Karen L. if I were a second grade teacher. Again, trying to make sure that I am able to make this as personalized as possible. Well, our goals today we're going to examine the Oklahoma Academic Standards for Computer Science, provide you a little bit of background information on those standards, and then the end goal is to identify strategies for the implementation of computer science into other core disciplines in the grades of K through 5. Well, I was going to take us through using a Pear Deck, but I'll tell you what, I think that I'm just going to skip through this with some of the technical issues that I have, and we will see. I'm going to zoom on through. So let's start and talk about what exactly is computer science. Computer science has been a buzzword a lot, and I think that it's not always clear in everyone's mind. So computer science is its own subject area. It has deep roots in mathematics and engineering. It focuses on both theoretical and applied approaches to the creation of computational processing. And computer scientists, their role is to work on the design and development of both hardware and software, and applying computing principles to a variety of fields. That was a definition that came directly from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. But I think that it might help us define computer science a little better by talking about some of the things that computer science isn't. Computer science is not teaching students to learn how to keyboard, okay? Computer science is not learning to use productivity tools such as the Microsoft Office products or Google Suite. And computer science isn't helping students achieve general computer literacy. While all of those will be supportive to people in a computer science role, those would be considered educational technology or just basic technology literacies. So now that I've kind of defined the two, I wanted to share a vision created by the K12CS.org organization. And when you think about computer science, our goal is not to create computer scientists out of every single person, but the goal is that computer science, by the end of 12th grade, all students will have engagement in the concepts and practices. They will have had the opportunity to experience computer science and computational thinking and see if that's something that they find interesting. We know that we expose children to art, we expose children to music, we expose children to sports, we expose children to all types of things. And we need to make sure our children are exposed to computer science too. If they're not exposed to computer science, they won't realize what some of the possibilities are for them in the future. Well, so in 2018, Oklahoma adapted and approved the Oklahoma Academic Standards for Computer Science. These were initially based upon the Computer Science Teachers Association standards, and Oklahoma took those basic standards from CSTA and went a step further. Through talking with multiple teachers and through committee work, Oklahoma was one of the first to create standards that are grade-based instead of grade band-based. And this was to have better help students build computer science skills incrementally and to allow teachers to see what skills students should have upon entering a specific grade level. While there are currently not a lot of schools in our state that offer computer science as a class, especially at the elementary level, these standards can help core content teachers guide students to build computer science skills through integration methods. Okay, so I've given you a little background on the computer science standards. Now I'm going to give you some opportunity to read through the computer science standards because, like I said, they were only adopted 2 years ago, and some of you may not have ever had a chance to look through and browse these standards. So if you will notice, there are 2 hyperlinks right here, and those hyperlinks will take you to PDFs. Please note that there's one column for kindergarten, there's a column for 1st grade, and there's a column for 2nd grade. And the same is true for, there we go. The same is true for the 3 through 5 standards. And let me go back up here. Okay, so while you're taking the time to read through and browse through those standards, I also have a document that I would like you to use to kind of help you to provide direction for you as you're reading through these standards. So in just a couple seconds, you will have the opportunity to pause and to look through the K2 document and the 3.5 document, and to open this document here. And this is what that document has. It has 3 questions for you to consider and take notes upon while you're reading those standards. What did you notice when looking through the standards? What did you wonder about when looking through the standards? And what comparisons and or differences do you see between the K2 and the 3.5 specific standards? So while you're having a chance to read through these, I'm going to be placing you into breakout rooms. And when you are in your breakout room, I'm going to ask that 3 roles are initially assigned. 1 person will be your timekeeper, and that person will help me and your group keep track of the 2 parts that I'm asking you to do. Part 1 being to read through the standards and take notes for yourself. And then part 2 will be a discussion over what you've noticed, wondered, and seen and taken notes of in your document. So we'll need a timekeeper, and then we'll have a discussion leader who will keep your discussion in part 2 focused and on topic. And then also select a spokesperson. So when all of the groups come back together into one big room, you will have somebody willing to share out some of the thoughts and ideas that you discussed in your small group. So once again, I will be placing you into groups. The first 10 minutes, your timekeeper will help you stay on track, and you're just going to have 10 minutes to browse through those standards and take notes in your note-taking document. I will send a message out through the breakout room windows that you have 8 minutes to do your group discussion after that 10 minutes have finished. So let me go into my Zoom and start setting up some breakout rooms. So I will bring you back here in about 18 minutes. And so if you'll just kind of be patient while you are going into your rooms, that would be great. And so I'll tell you what, our breakout rooms aren't working. So take those first 10 minutes and start reading through those standards and let me explore more. Uh-oh. Okay, so please remember that right now, although our breakout rooms are not working, I'm hoping that you're still taking this time to read through the computer science standards for K2 and for 3.5 and place your responses in the note-taking document. Okay, at this time, you should be heading into breakout rooms. Thank you again for your patience. If you are just joining us, you should be now having the chance to be in a breakout room and have the ability to read through the standards. And you've got about 5 more minutes for just reading through standards. Holy shit. Then my son texts me and it comes across the computer, but I wasn't sharing screen yet. He goes, I think Sted has COVID, which he does.
Karen?
Yes, ma'am. We still have a few people that I'm trying to force into a room. But I'll tell you what, if you are still here, I would love to have you unmute yourselves right now. And let's see. The rooms are still going in slowly. Shana, what are you seeing? Do you?
It sent me to a room. I went ahead and left it.
Okay.
I came back, but it did send me to a room.
Okay, for those of you that are still in here, I would love to have you take the time to unmute yourself and share some of the things that you've seen that are related to the standards. What are some ways that you see K2 related to 3.5? What were some things that you noticed and wondered? And I see some people, if you are uncomfortable unmuting yourselves, if you would like to respond to some of these questions in the chat box. Okay, for those of you that are just joining us right now, I'm going to go back and let you know that in the chat box, there are links to the K2 standard and the 3.5 standards, and there's a note-taking document where you are able to go through and share some of the things that you've noticed and wondered about the standards.
Karen, several people in the chat box are saying they can't hear. Your audio is kind of echoing, kind of funny, but I can hear you.
Let me see if I can get help.
Some are saying the video is frozen as well.
Okay, for you that are still hanging out here with me, I'll tell you what, I am going to pull everyone back in 1 minute. Hopefully our volume and audio will be working better. Okay, so they are coming back, and I am going to go back to sharing my screen again and see if we're able to talk through some of the things that you noticed. Nothing is coming up.
I'll just share with you what Lindsay said. She said that the standards are broken down into small steps as well to build on one another. So we aren't introducing.
Great. Okay, so we should have everyone back. Sheena is going ahead and sharing some of the discussion information in the chat box. But specifically, what is one thing you noticed when looking through the standards? And I'm going to ask that if you are in this session, if you are ready to speak out, if you will unmute yourself, but then other than that, would you please make sure you are muted, because I think that might be part of our audio problem some people are experiencing. So what was something that you noticed? Did you notice anything as it went from one grade level to another? Well, I'm hoping one thing that you noticed was that you could see the incremental building of skills as you went from one grade level to another. Each level just had students think a little bit more or add another level of difficulty to the standards. I'm hoping that you had some wonderings. And again, if you notice, the standards between K2 and K5 at least had some of the same format, and we're going to look specifically at that information next. So when you're looking and analyzing the Oklahoma academic standards for computer science, you're going to notice that there are some static concepts that are in every set of standards from K through 12. Those concepts are computing systems, networks and the internet, data analysis, algorithms and programming, and impacts of computing. And again, like I said, those are present in every set of standards from K through 12. Then we break it down even further into sub-concepts for each of those main concepts. In computing systems, we talk about different types of devices, specific hardware and software issues and usage, and also make sure that our students are learning some of the troubleshooting skills that they need to know in order to be normal everyday technology users. We also have, under the networks and internet, a sub-concept of network communication and organization, and cybersecurity. That one, especially now, seems to be something that there needs to be a lot of focus on, and just teaching students how to be safe when online. Under the concept of data analysis, we have the sub-concept of collection of data, storage of data, visualization and transformation of the data, because once you collect it, you have to be able to share it, and inference and models. So collecting it, sharing it, and showing it so people can understand what has been used and in what way it can be used. Under the concept of algorithms and programming, now's when we start to get a little more computer sciencey in terms of the basic concepts. We have our algorithms, we have variables, control, modularity, and program development. And then our last concept is the impacts of computing. And our sub-concepts there are culture, understanding how computing and computers and the use of all of this impacts culture here and around the world. The social interaction impacts of computing. And the safety, law, and ethics related to the impacts of computing. Okay, so when we're talking about being able to integrate computer science concepts into core content classes, we're really going to be focusing more just on these two strands and concepts of computer science in our standards. Because while the other ones are good and we're able to hit those easily, these are more of the basis for everything behind computer science. So now that we've examined the standards, now we're going to look at some of the fundamentals that apply and can be pulled from these standards. Computer science is based on 6 fundamentals: sequence, loops, events, conditionals, functions, and variables. So what we're going to now do is we're going to examine, well, to define and examine each of these fundamentals and take the time to concentrate and think, where might we see these fundamentals in our core content classes in grades K through 5? So first, we have sequence. Take a moment to think about where you talk about sequence in your daily lives and with your students, and any lessons that you teach in the K-5 level that have to do with sequencing. I'd like you to take a moment to share your thoughts in the chat box. And Shana, if you would be able to share some of those examples of sequencing, either that can be pulled from students' daily lives or from some of their content courses.
Yes, Karen, one question before. Someone had a question about, without a computer science background, they're concerned how they can successfully teach these standards. So,
great. That's part of understanding these 6 fundamentals. Because if we're able to understand these 6 fundamentals, computer science at the K-5 level is very, it's an easy concept. It's when it goes 6-12 that you're becoming more specific. You as an adult can easily learn the computer science concepts. And like I said, we're going to start with these 6 fundamentals and see where they would occur in the core content that you're already teaching. Shana, did we have any specific examples of where sequence is found?
we did. We had that in ELA, coding,
Okay.
calendar, math algorithms, classroom procedures in all academic subjects, steps in scientific experiment models.
Good. I mean, when you're introducing the concept of sequencing to students, one of the first things is to introduce that vocabulary. So if you're initially using the word sequence, let's think about some of our sequences. What is the sequence that we do when we go through our calendar? Or what are the steps that you take every day when you come into our classroom? That's called a sequence. So when they're able to understand that basic definition and can understand and grasp sequence in their daily lives and some of their classroom lessons, then we're able to easily transfer that into some computer science specific activities. So here were some examples of sequence that I had thought of. Story sequencing. We always teach our students a first, next, last in stories, where you start at the beginning, you go through the middle, and there's a definite end. So we can draw attention to that when we're talking about stories. For our math teachers, somebody kind of already hit on that. You have your order of operation, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. When you're teaching that with students, you can easily say, this is the sequence of events that we take when instructing students in math. Okay, well, how does that connect to our Oklahoma computer science standards? You can see that in grades 1, K through 2, it's talking about control. We've got the word including sequences, emphasizing beginning, middle, and end. It's also talking about program development that includes programming language and even unplugged activities that include sequence. And that carries on over to our 3.5 standards just as well in control and program development. So some of you are already doing some of this computer science language already in your classroom. Another fundamental is loops, and loops are a set of instructions that repeat either a certain number of times, forever, or until something happens. Take a second right now and think, what are some daily activities your students do, or what are some lessons that you teach your students that already contain looping? And please go ahead and share that in the chat box, and Shana will be able to help make sure that those are shared aloud.
Karen, while they're writing that, some of the questions are, is there a academic vocabulary list for computer science by grade level available?
I have something at the end of this session that will help you with that.
Thank you. And that was the other question, other resources to help teach the standards.
Absolutely. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of these fundamentals, and then we're going to talk about some of the actual activities you can do. So what are some activities people have shared that involve loops in their course content and work?
Division algorithm.
Okay.
Long division requires looping. And that's all we have for right now.
Okay. Well, let me share some other ideas. Think about this. First of all, there's a picture of the design thinking process. That is a definite loop. And whether you're teaching it in a science class or a social studies class, you're going through that same process. They're identifying a need, they're researching, developing solutions, testing those solutions, and redesigning it. So there is one way you can talk about, did you notice, look, we're doing a loop, it all goes around. We also have the presidential election process. Every 4 years, we go through the same steps each time. I know that it's not exactly grade level specific, but think of some of the looping that goes on with the water cycle. So we already have a lot of examples of looping that are going on in core content areas. And again, we just need to identify it as looping. So when we're connecting it to our computer science activities, they're already familiar with the word looping. And where is this found in our standards? Again, it's in control and program development at both K2 and 3.5. And you'll notice at 3.5, we've even added a second program development standard there. You will have full access to this slide deck that will contain all of the definitions and the linking to standards at the end of this session. So you will be able to take this and refer back. The third foundational part of computer science is events. And events are just defined as an interaction or a change that can be sensed by a computer or a robot. And whenever you have events, you also have event handlers. And that's a program with specific instructions for whatever happens when an event happens. I think this is probably one of the most difficult to grasp of the fundamentals, But really, if you're looking at some of these images here, maybe it might help you think of examples of even events that happen in your core content areas. And I'd love to have you share some of those before I share some ideas with you. Any ideas in the chat box, Shayna?
Cause and effect.
Okay. I'm going to talk about this Game Boy icon. Now, I know our students don't use Game Boys. It's kind of hard to find free usage images that exactly fit our need. But I want you to think of the fact that the buttons on a Game Boy are events that the device can detect. If you have an Alexa in your house, your Alexa listens for your voice. And when it hears your voice, then it will reply with something. If you have a Ring doorbell, it waits for the button to be pressed before it will ring, okay? We have, again, GPS on a phone. Your phone is listening to events. One of those events is your location. And based upon your location, it will then tell you if you need to turn right or turn left. A keyboard. Every key pressed on a keyboard is an event. Those are all types of input devices. The event handler is the program that has the specific instructions for the reaction. So in some programs, if I press the space bar, it will move me across the document. Although in other programs, when I press the space bar, it might make something jump or move. So let's look specifically at some events. Here's an image of a boy standing holding a brick. An event can be when the brick drops. When he lets go of the brick falls. More specifically, when you're using tools such as the image on the right, these are event handlers from within Scratch. So these are blocks that students can pull over. They're even called and identified events. And maybe students decide that if they want to use this top block, when someone clicks on the flag, then something happens within their game. When the space bar is pressed, maybe that makes an image run across the screen. Or when the sprite, which is in Scratch a term for a little icon or character, when the sprite is clicked, maybe it changes costume. So each of those are events, and you already talk about events in history and events in science. So think about the, even I was talking about the brick with potential and kinetic energy. Think about labeling some of those as events. So when they carry over, this is a very easy concept for students to grasp when they see these icons. We can see events occurring sometimes within troubleshooting and collection of data and under the control, modularity, and program development standards in our Oklahoma academic standards. We only have 3 more foundational attributes, and then we're going to actually talk a little bit more detail about how all of this information can fit into your classroom. I think it's really important that you're able to identify the connection to the standards and some of this vocabulary before we talk about how you can just teach computer science to your students. Another one of the foundationals is a conditional. It's an if-then statement. These are instructions that depend upon whether something is true or false. They help programs make the decision on what is going to happen next. Think real quick, maybe even history, or you've got your choose your own adventure books, but where might we see conditionals in history or science classes? If you'd share any of those in the chat box before I share some examples for you. Sheena, do we have any?
If you put oil and water together, then they don't mix.
Okay. So that could be a conditional. What mixes with oil and what doesn't mix with oil?
That's all we have at this time.
Okay. Well, think about something as basic as, if it is a weekday, we go to school. If it is a weekend, then we stay home. You can do this when you're classifying animals. If an animal has fur, then it is a mammal. If an animal lays eggs, then it is not a mammal. So we can do that with classifying animals. Anytime we're talking about decision trees, we're talking conditionals. So here are some conditionals. We could even have students create their own conditional charts. Based upon the weather, if it's sunny out and I have time, I might decide to walk to work. If it's sunny and my time is short, then I would take the bus. If it's rainy, well, then I'm just automatically going to take the bus. And again, this helps our students by taking multiple possibilities and putting them into visual representation. Another one we have talked about, I'm sure, in science classes at some point in time, is Pavlov's dog and conditioning. If the bell rings, then the dog will be hungry and start salivating just because of the times that he was fed when the bell rings and associating that. We can see that in our data analysis with visualization, transformation, and models and inferences. And then we can also see that in some of our algorithms, control, and program development as we get to the upper levels. Just two more fundamentals to go. The next one is functions. Functions is defined as a series of instructions, usually given a name, that can be reused throughout a program or in another program. You can see a function right there on the screen. That is a football play. Think about tying that in. Some of your male and or female students, anyone that loves football, can easily visualize a function that this player is going to go this way, this player is going to go this way, this player is going to go this way, and we're going to name this bonsai. Bonsai is the function, and it's all put together in that. Can you think of any other times in the day or core content areas that you use functions? And if you'd share those in the chat box so Shana can share those with us. Anything? You know, I really wish you all were here face to face, because it is a challenge sometimes to get you to participate when we're going through visual. I could just look at someone and call on them, and I know that you're there and thinking. So here are some ideas that I had for functions.
Karen, I did have some, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Classroom jobs, sentence diagramming, learning centers, procedures, how to line up, steps to line up. We had several on that one that were the same as well.
Okay, well, think about if you ever teach music to students, a song with a chorus is a function because you go back and repeat that. The process of solving a math problem is a function. There are steps that you take. Even talking about how a bill can become a law is a function. What steps do you take? And maybe we can call that the process of a bill, and what has to happen in a specific order for that to happen, and what are the roles of each of those people involved in the writing of a bill. And we can see some of the alignment again goes with collection, visualization, and data analysis at the younger grades, and even some troubleshooting as we get older. The last of the 6 foundationals is called a variable. And a variable in computer science is defined as a number or a symbol that represents a number or some other value that can be referred to in a program and changed over time. Now, if you're a math teacher, I know you have a strong grasp on what a variable is. Can you think of any other content areas or activities that involve variables. And if you'd share those in your chat box, I'd like to hear your ideas before I share some with you. Any ideas in the chat box, Sheena?
Science experiments.
Okay. Oh, great. Absolutely.
An email message.
Okay.
Social studies, cycles of drought or weather patterns.
Okay. Think even in your password. Okay, we've got different things that can be changed in a password, such as the strings of letters. Think of in a basketball game, every time someone scores, the score, the number in the score changes. We've got off and on variables. You've got true, false variables. Here was an example I was thinking of math, and we know that in math, math teachers definitely want to make sure that math vocabulary is taught and reinforced. So when you're talking about variables in math, such as in this example, every time you see a blue box, you would put the number 2. Every time you see a pink box, you write the number 5. The yellow box is the number 7. And the green box is always going to change based upon the variables that you've added. And I could also go back and change my variables here to have different responses. So as you're using the term variables in math and making them feel very comfortable in maybe math or science, it will also be a good thing to carry over when they go in and begin some computer science activities. Okay, so you've been given some time to see how you can integrate some of these standards and fundamentals in the curriculum. And I really want to provide you with some opportunity to work with other people within your specific grade level to brainstorm ways that you can implement topics such as variables and conditionals. So what you will see on the next few slides is a document per grade level. And before we do this, I would ask that you rename yourself within Zoom with, you should already have a number in front of your name, or K1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you are a person that initially had admin or district or CS, you have 2 opportunities. You can either select a grade to go in and work with, or we'll just kind of dump you in a grade breakout room, maybe one that needs some help. So when you get with your group, you will open the planning document. And what it is it again defines the 6 fundamentals, and each of the fundamentals is hyperlinked to another location in that document. So if I click on loops, I can go down to loops and I can say maybe science and write an example of where I see loops in science and how I might be able to tie in that concept with the computer science vocabulary. And what you need to do is really think about what are your Oklahoma academic standards for your specific grade level. If your grade level does not discuss water cycle, then that would not be something that would be added to your document. The goal for this is for us to have some brainstorming time across the state to identify opportunities to integrate those 6 fundamentals in daily lessons. This is the opportunity for you as teachers across the state to work together to build a repository of ideas. As I stated earlier, you will be able to access this slide deck, which also means you will be able to access each of these documents for reference later on. And the goal is to get some lesson ideas and then be able to expand them even more so that we have a better repository of information for teachers that would like
Well,
to
it
look
called
someplace.
twice, and it's called and left a text message. And when it left a text
Okay,
message,
so
then it
once
blocked
again,
me out again.
until you are in a breakout room, I would like you to remain muted.
I told them that. I told them that for 3 days.
Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to assign you into
Something
your
about
breakout rooms
that was not a collection.
and have you discuss and go through as a group based upon your grade level. So I'm going to stop sharing so that I can create the breakout groups. And add a room.
Some people don't have the correct operating system to join breakout groups. For example, if you're on a Chromebook or if you're using Chrome. So some people will not go to the breakout room, so you'll have to use the main room to facilitate.
Okay, so here's what I found out. Some of you, if you're on some specific devices, are unable to access breakout rooms. So if you are a person that is unable to access a breakout room, you will remain here in the main room. As I'm working to push you into breakout rooms, I see many people that just have their name as their identifier. And in order for me to push you into a room, I would need to know what grade level you are working with. So again, if you could go through and change your name so that you have a number in front of your name, that would be very helpful. And I'm trying to assign some of you. You may be the only one in a room for a few minutes as I am placing you there. And again, it would be very helpful if you would be able to rename yourself so that I know what grade level to place you in within the breakout rooms. And you will have about 15 minutes to work with people within that room to create some activities that could be used or lesson ideas. And again, I have many, many people that I do not have the ability to add them into a breakout room because I'm not sure what grade level you are working with. And Shana, would you be able to pop the documents back in the chat room so that if they go into a breakout room and they're in kindergarten, they're able to access the kindergarten document? And I am just putting multiple people into some of these rooms so that they're able to discuss together. Okay, for those of you that are still here with me, what are some of your grade levels? I do see some people that are adding, and I'm trying to make sure that if you are unassigned and still here with me, if I'm able to add you to a breakout room. Kara Smith, I see you're unable to change your name, and I think that some of the other people that are here are having that same issue. Even if you are unable to change your name, or I'm unable to put you into a breakout room, if you would take a few minutes and just open up the document that best represents the grade level you work with, and go ahead and just start adding information in there remotely. Think about, again, some of the concepts that you teach at your grade level and see how you would be able to share that with students at your specific grade level. And I'm going to give you about 4 more minutes to just share some planning ideas.
Karen,
Yes,
can you move me from room to room so I can add those documents?
that would be great. I'm trying to see you.
And once I'm in the rooms, how exactly do I do that?
You should just be able to put a link in the chat box.
Okay.
Yes, it'll be a unique chat box for each group at this point.
Yes,
Thank you.
and I am not seeing you as in the list to assign chats.
I think she said she was in
Room 3.
breakout room 3 right now.
Well, I came back to the main room.
Oh, there we go. Okay, got it. You were stuck there. And you should be in 2, headed to 2.
Okay.
It says you have not joined. It's going there. There we go.
Yeah, so you can give her a minute and then switch her into the next room and the next and the next, and then bring
Yes.
her back. You're doing great, Karen.
So by the time they get up to 5th grade, they can type on the computer.
Yes, by the time mine get to 5th grade, they're able to type.
Okay. All right. Well, we're just starting that in Wagner this next year and starting a class 2nd grade through 5th grade because none of our kids know how to type.
We're all coming back together, and I would just like to thank you, first of all, for your patience with some of the difficulties that we've run into. And I am going to share my screen and see if we are able to look at some of the ideas people have shared within these documents. So let's see. Kindergarten, and good, we've got some sequencing ideas. And again, this is something that sometimes it takes time to think and then go in and add some information, because some of you are still having, you know, maybe some thoughts on what exactly does a variable mean and how does that apply to some of the work that my students are doing. See what we have, if any, in 1st grade. Okay, we have some reading, sequencing of events and stories, sequencing of numbers. Well, I know you can go through and look at all of those ideas on your own. Again, you have access to all of those and can reflect, add, share, modify. If you have any additional ideas, I will come back to that. But I wanted to share some what's next, because I know this is more of the meat. Again, we've talked a lot about the fact that the first step is to have you and students feel comfortable with some of the computer science vocabulary and make sure that you're using those in the content areas, because it will calm you and students down. Although students really don't have any fears when it comes to computer science. They get excited, it's fun for them. And then we can reintroduce those vocabulary within your computer science courses or with some computer science tools, such as, first of all, some of you have said, and I completely understand, some of the verbiage in not only the standards, but in some of the computer science activities are words that maybe you have not had as much familiarity with. There is a link, and when you access this slide deck at home, you can either click on the arrow or quiz, but there's a quizzes game that can help you go through and review and learn some of the vocabulary shared both in this session and that you see within the computer science standards. So this is a good place to start for teachers to feel more comfortable with some of the verbiage. Moving on from there, again, some of the resources in this slide deck, hopefully as people go home and start to think about it, maybe you can work with some of your team members to add some ideas into those planning documents. And then that will help me be able to work with some other teachers to build out a lesson repository that we know are all based upon our Oklahoma academic standards. Another resource you might want to look at is the CS framework. Again, you will be able to access this through this document. This is a document that I was working on when we first went to distance learning in March, because there are so many different computer science resources available for you to choose from. I tried to make a list of some of the most popular ones. And like you can hear, Scratch is great for grades 3 through 12. It does have an educator guide available and allows teachers to create classes and share activities with students. Code.org is another wonderful resource, even for you as a teacher, to go through and learn some of those basic computer science skills. we celebrated Hour of Code in January or December. It's all blurring together now, here at the State Department of Education. And I had many of my coworkers join me to spend an hour learning to code. And it was a wonderful event, because just like you would see in the classroom, we had those people that jumped right in and had some familiarity and really had fun. And then we had some people that were struggling. And it was great to be able to talk through the struggles with them, and then to see the success when they were able to accomplish the different challenges that were provided through some of the Hour of Code activities. I've tried to make sure that like VidCode was free through May 2020. When sharing resources, free is definitely the way to go. I think one of my biggest fears as we went into distance learning was the amount of companies sharing access to their tools. It was great, but they were only sharing access until maybe June or August. So those teachers that got really excited saying, this is a great program, I love using it, maybe would not have the funding to have that tool remain useful to them in the future. So again, I've tried to detail stuff out. There's even a section of low tech or no tech resources. If you are looking for ways to begin teaching basic computer science skills, there is a website right here, CS Unplugged. It contains unit plans, lessons, curriculum integration. Now, the one caution that I would say is all of these are probably aligned to the CSTA, or the Computer Science Teachers Association standards. I will be placing a crosswalk between the CSTA standards and our Oklahoma standards on my computer science page. Because just because it says that it is appropriate for 3rd grade, or from the 3-5 band and the CSTA standards, it might actually hit another grade level within our Oklahoma standards. So I want to make sure that if you're teaching the skills that we're teaching, making sure that students are building and getting the ones that end up being age appropriate. Also, remember, anytime you're sharing any of this information and these lessons with students, take baby steps, because what you are sharing is probably more than they've ever had before. And it's okay for you to go slowly and for students to pick this information up, because again, we want to make sure we're exposing students to our different skills and standards. And another thing that you may find useful as a resource is the Distance Learning Task Database. And I'm not sure if you've seen this, but this gets even more granular. As we go down here, we do have a table that you're able to filter through. So here are some computer science, and then we see dance, drama, and beyond. But if I'm looking specifically under computer science, these are lessons and ideas that already have connections to our standards. Maybe students are going to debug several lines of code. Maybe they're solving multiplication and division problems. It provides you the hyperlink that will take you to that actual lesson. It will show you the grade band that would be appropriate for these lessons. And then it will also show you additional subject areas. So if I am teaching, I want a low-tech activity that ties into English language arts standards at the 1, 2, or 3, 5 level. Maybe this activity right here, this unit will use circular stories. There I have an opportunity to meet multiple content area standards by teaching students lessons that I probably already am teaching, and there's some good guidance and activities there for you. And let's see if I can get back to, we're having all kinds of, there's so many tabs open here now. I'm just trying to get back to there we go. So those are 3 resources you may find useful. Some other things that you can do. Each month I send out a computer science newsletter, and that will contain information not just for middle school and high school content specific or computer science specific teachers, but it can have information for our K-8 teachers or K-5 teachers that are looking for integration tips and or professional development opportunities. You're also able to follow us on Twitter, either the State Department or me. Every time I see a wonderful computer science related activity or post, I'm making sure I'm retweeting that. Another option is to join CSTA, the Computer Science Teacher Association. We have an Oklahoma chapter and it is free to join. It's a great way to meet up with other teachers that are interested in sharing computer science with students. You can get more information there. I would also love, and probably am terrified to have you complete an exit survey. Again, I would like to apologize for many of the issues that we've run into today. I know some are here on my end and some are on the ends, your individual ends. I think we always have to remember that as we go through situations such as this and we are sharing through periods of distance learning, we all have issues, even somebody who is the Director of Education Technology. We just have to keep going and work our way through and know that there will be grace provided. And hopefully, even if you were unable to go to a breakout room, hopefully you've gained a little bit better understanding of our computer science standards. You're able to reflect back upon the 6 fundamentals of computer science and see how those can be woven across the different content areas. And you now have a list of some of the resources that you can refer back to moving forward if this is something that you would like to share more with your students. So before we go, if you have any questions or comments or concerns or even tips for others, I would love to have you share that in the chat box. And I'm also going to make sure that as I'm looking at the chat box and pull that up, you do also have access to my contact information. And please feel free to talk, to send messages, to let me know what I can do to help you either get a better understanding of how to teach computer science in your content area, or even other educational technology tools or questions in general. I will also throw out that if you have not yet attended any of our Tech Tool Tuesdays, that we will be having the next Tech Tool Tuesday on Tuesday at noon, and the topic for that Tech Tool Tuesday is screencasting. So you're able to kind of like pull everything together. Maybe you want to teach a language arts class or a language arts lesson, integrate some computer science, and you want to create a video and be able to share that with students. You might find the screencasting session helpful. So please share any chat questions you may have in the chat, and hopefully you have some wonderful takeaways. And I really appreciate each of you for taking the time to spend the morning with me. I know that your students will be thankful, their parents will be thankful, and we are very thankful for all that you're doing to help educate our students across the state. Thank you very much.